Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert. I hope you're ready to grow big or go home. I have N, if I'm being correct in my English, since I was an English teacher, an incredible guest, Peter MacDonald from Wunderite. And a lot of you have heard of Wunderite. A lot of you that I was sitting around the conference at the BrainShare conference, Jason Cass's brainchild, over in Kansas City. Peter was there, and man, I got to talk with him and get a lot of good information about what you're about to hear. But he's going to talk to us about faster, easier, better, which is moving the industry forward for insurance agents. We'll talk to you about that and what that means, but you're definitely going to want to stick around for this. So let's talk about Peter for a second. Before founding Wunderite in 2018, Peter worked at a family insurance agency selling most types of insurance. That's important. Remember that, because he's not just some guy from outside the industry schlepping technology. In this role, Peter earned industry licenses and credentials: CPCU, CRM, CIC, LIA. This guy knows what the heck he's doing. He represented independent agents to lawmakers in Washington, D.C. with the big I, and built and implemented technology for the agency. He was intrigued by computers since he was 4, nerd. Peter hacked the UI in AOL Instant Messenger, started modhalo.net to enhance Halo gameplay. Okay, that's cool. And built bulletprooflinks.com, featured in Wire. Okay, that's actually super sexy. I can't wait to talk to you about that. All of that before graduating from high school. So this guy is kind of a phenom. He quickly figured that the insurance industry needed better technology. Amen, brother. Peter earned an MBA with distinction from Boston College. Go BC. As a Dean Scholar and BS in Mathematics cum laude from Wheaton. Peter lives in Massachusetts with his wife and 2 kids. He is a former traveler, gonna have to ask you about that, recent drone enthusiast, and likes to be outside. Yes, he does. Welcome to Agents Growth Academy, Peter MacDonald from Wunderite. What's up, man?
Let's go. That was too kind. Too kind. What's going on, Jim?
All right, so we got to dig into a couple things there.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Wired thing. I totally geek out. I used to get monthly subscriptions to Wired, and how did all that come about?
Yeah, and this, I know you like to do the rapid round at the end about advice for your younger self, and I think one
Yeah.
of my pieces of advice is, especially to those young people, is go for it.
Yeah.
Um, I played a lot of video games in high school and sports. Like I was a balanced kind of person.
Yeah.
I taught web design in high school. I created and taught a web design class. You could do that at the school that I went to, and I was like, this is going to be an important skill, and so taught web design and had all these different backgrounds. Anyways, with a teacher, which was a fellow classmate of mine, we had created a web design class together. In our spare time, we built this website called bulletprooflinks.com. And the whole concept was, back then, if you were like a fledgling or emerging web designer trying to build like the latest and greatest, there was like different collections of sites. We're like, what are the best tools for selecting colors and for patterns and CSS tips and tricks? There wasn't really like an easy place to find all that. So Bulletproof Links was a spot where you could submit like, hey, I found this site. Here's what I like about it. And it was almost like almost like a favorites, where it was like a favorites of all my different sites, except it wasn't just you, it was like all the web designers in the country. And you could like rank which ones were or vote on which ones were like the best of the tools that were out there. And so the idea was really a resource for other web designers. Built that back in high school with, again, my fellow teacher. We were both, high school students. I don't even know how Wired picked it up. If you Google search like Peter MacDonald, Bulletproof Links, Wired, like it's still, I think it's, last I checked, it was still out there. And like, that was kind of fun. My uncle at the time, he's since passed away, but extremely successful person. I think he was pretty impressed. He's like, wow, like that's cool. And at the time, like, I'm like, that is pretty cool. If I could go back in time and tell my younger self, I'm like, Peter, go for it. Go all in right now. Like, that's take awesome. This and just like, go to the moon. And so that's advice for anyone listening to the podcast today is go for it, man.
Go for it. I love it, man. So we're both Boston College graduates. You got your MBA there. Congratulations on that. It makes me think of the BC motto, which is ever to excel, right? And
Yeah.
always trying to do better than you did the day before. Super cool. I, I was looking behind you. I thought for a second, I thought that was like Gas and Hall, but I don't think it is.
No, it's funny because it does look similar. So for those who aren't familiar, Boston College looks like it's straight out of Harry Potter. It is one of the
Yeah.
most gorgeous, quintessential campuses right outside of Boston. I promise you, if you just search like Boston College campus, you will be amazed. We had our MBA first day, like networking. We're like drinking, networking in like this beautiful library. It looks like it's a movie set.
Oh,
This is
Burns or
Uppsala,
Baps?
Sweden, over here, and this is where I
Yeah.
met my wife. I'm actually a dual citizen of Sweden, and so spent a good
Nice.
amount of time over there. And this is the oldest university in Scandinavia, is
Wow.
in Uppsala.
Is she a Svenska flicka as well?
Svenska flicka, yeah, svenska tjej. There we go. Jeez, like we
That's
just
the
have so
only
many.
Swedish phrase I know, by the way.
That's probably a good one. That's like a Swedish girl. That's like a good phrase to know. She is actually from Germany. My mom is from Sweden,
Yeah,
and my wife is from Germany. She was studying abroad in Sweden. I was studying abroad in Sweden.
that's
But so yeah,
cool, man.
Boston College, great time. I think the undergrad program is probably a little bit more sophisticated than the grad program, to your credit. But had a tremendous time. I mean, there's just some awesome people, and that's really what kind of kicked me off on the entrepreneurial journey. I was always excited about building something, and I
Yeah,
think the BC space, even recently, they just have some fantastic, fantastic entrepreneurs. Some of the big companies that come to mind. Jebbit has been a big influencer for us. They just sold or raised through Vista, which is one of the best known private equity companies. Drizzly is another one that's like, I think, alcohol delivery to your door kind of thing. And
cool.
they had a big exit to Uber. So like there's just more, there's tons and tons of companies that have come out of Boston College. And so it's a great spot.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I gotta ask you real quick. Former traveler, what does that mean? How can
Um,
one be a former traveler?
yeah. So when I graduated, I had traveled during school every summer and throughout Europe. And when I graduated, I bought a one-way ticket and I lived out of a backpack for 6 months.
Yeah, you
And
did.
then my goal was to kind of visit a few new countries a year, every year. I think I've been to like 37 countries by the time I was
Wow.
24.
Oh man.
Um, Now listen, Jim, this wasn't like we weren't staying in like the Ritz Carlton. Like we were staying
Yeah.
at like I was in a backpack. I
Hostels.
think, yeah, hostels, the cheapest hotels. I've been scammed so many times. And I think on a 6 month period, I think I spent 2 months sleeping at a tent, and then on average, it was like a new place every 2 days. So, nothing about glamorous travel, but certainly grounding and helpful as far as thinking about your place in the world, and
Yeah.
and just how amazing life is for us in the United States. The things we take for granted today, when you're able to
Amen.
truly like, yeah, see a different part of the world and so many different parts, you're like, wow. Like I'll tell you, like being a white dude, like I didn't know
Yeah.
what that meant until you're like, you go abroad and you're like, wow, like actually people want to take a photo with you just because you're like in Egypt, like oh my
Yeah.
gosh, a white person,
Yeah.
or in India. So it's
Yeah.
in different areas in those countries.
Sure.
And then getting married, having kids, and like my wife is from Germany, family in Sweden. It's like now we kind of go to Germany and Sweden to visit
Yeah.
family. And as much as I love to travel, it's kind of like this phase of my life is probably calling us elsewhere. So maybe
Yeah.
there'll be a point in the future where I can open that back up again and do some more travel. But for now, I'm totally thrilled to be traveling across the U.S. to meet agents like you in Kansas City, Missouri, or down in Florida we were just down in Florida last week, and Arizona 2 weeks before that. So
Yeah. Getting around, man. Love it. There's a lot of education that comes, I think, from traveling. Like you said, you really start to learn, where your place in the world is and how good, you have it here. And but also I think you'll also start to see that generally people are all the same, right? Like you start to really realize, I think, that with as many differences as we have as a human race, we are all very similar in a lot of regards, and I think there's a lot to be learned from that. So
yeah, and I definitely think one of my top lessons was most people, they want to provide a good life for them and a better life for their kids, and that it seems like
yeah,
a pretty universal thing.
yeah, yep, agreed. All right, man. Faster, easier, better, moving the insurance industry forward for agents. Tell me why, was there a pivotal moment for you or an epiphany that you had that was like, this needs to happen? There was a problem that we were trying to solve.
Yeah, I remember one of the deals, the biggest deals that I closed, and it was right before business school. Um, Maybe it was like a $20 million, 150, 200 person technology company, and sold them insurance. Probably partially on a broker of record.
Yeah.
Or let me say it differently. It was probably entirely on a broker of record. We may have moved some of the business. But basically went in there, did a real thorough gap analysis based
Yeah.
on like all the education experience we had, and got them to kind of like fire their a golfing friend for 20 plus years, who's like nice person,
Yeah.
but had left the business seriously exposed. I think like it's easy as an agent when you're focused on new business to forget about a renewal from time to time, and you do that one too many times or over a 10, 20 year period, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, the world's changed, the company's
Yeah.
changed, and you haven't done your work. So did a gap analysis, did a lot of great work for the company. They were excited to hire me. They're excited to work together. They saw the plan that I put together and were like, this makes sense. This person is truly working hard to earn our business and to do things to, even if it's with the same insurance carrier, provide the right level of expertise that we need as an organization. And then, like, after making that decision, it's like, hey, great, let's sit down and fill out mountains of paperwork.
Yeah.
And to me, I just knew myself. Like, I was like, if someone dumped this paperwork on my desk after I was excited to work together, I would be anything but thrilled. I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is so frustrating. It's like back to everything that I dislike about the industry. It's like we're just kind of stuck in the old days. And Jim, at the end of it is like we do all this work, we collect all this data, we do all this risk management, gap analysis, and then like, what happens with that paper? We
Mm.
scan it, we email it to some underwriters, we attach it to an activity, and it never sees the light of day again. And you
Yeah.
can never find it again because it's stuck in the Twitter sphere and in your email. But that information is so valuable when you really think about like the data that we have as agencies, what we know about our customers, more so than like what coverage did you buy? Hey, I have $1 million limit. I have a $5,000 deductible. Like, great, no one cares. But it's
Yeah.
like, hey, who is Jim? Is Jim married? Does he have kids? How old are they? When are they going to college? Does he have retirement planning? Does he have life insurance? Where does he work? What does he do for fun? Like, all those data points are so interesting because
Yeah.
now you can start thinking about what products can I recommend, whether it's an insurance product or it's a
Yeah.
risk management product. And so with Wunderite, the idea originally was like, we need to wrap our arms around this data in a way that's easy for agents and is opt-in and easy for the end customer as well.
Yeah. I love it. So what does Wunderite actually do?
Yeah, so Wunderite is the fastest and easiest way for insurance agents to collaboratively, and I'd say collaboratively, both with their team, the account execs, the producers, the CSRs, together to fill out paperwork. Also, bring your clients into the process if you want to fill out accords, supplementals, excess and surplus, questionnaires, vehicle schedules, property schedules, driver schedules. The easiest way to capture all that data and then make a top of stack submission every single time.
Awesome. And I have to be transparent with the audience too. We are currently evaluating you guys for use in our agency. We know plenty of agencies who are using your software already. And I have to tell you, man, we did a demo with you guys, well, I think late last week, and super, super impressive. This thing has, well, I'll let you tell everybody. I mean, what do you think in terms of what will it actually do for insurance agents in terms of time given back or other benefits that are beyond just exactly what the software does? That make sense?
Yeah, and by the way, who is doing your demo? Who's
Well,
demoing the
you
software?
were, and Dylan.
Dylan. So it's worth bringing Dylan into the mix. Like, Dylan was a
Yeah.
top salesperson with Federated. Literally number one
Yeah.
in the Mid Atlantic region. And I think part of it, the story is it's not just like Peter, it's Peter and the team. And like we've put
Yeah.
together a team of people who are truly outstanding what they've done. And I think what's amazing with Dylan's work is like Dylan knows the pain points. He's been in the field. He's cold called. He's knocked door
Yeah.
to door to door to sell the product. And so when you're talking to a salesperson like Dylan, it's like, yeah, he can probably outperform some of the greatest, some of the best producers out there.
Yeah.
And so he knows the pain points firsthand. He's done it, and he's succeeded. So I think, like, back to your question, what does Wunderite do? And I think, first of all, most is like, what is an insurance agency? And it's like, yeah, it's a sales organization first and foremost. If you think you're a service organization, it's like, yeah, maybe service
Yeah.
is important. Retention is
Yeah.
the name of the game, like long term. But an insurance agency is fundamentally the outsourced sales arm of an insurance carrier or
Yeah.
multiple insurance carriers. And so
Sure.
it's your job to, put food on the table, to put deals on the table, to like bring deals to the carriers.
Yeah.
It's your job to do a great job underwriting your clients. And I say underwriting in the sense of like helping them tell a great story about who they are and why in the insurance marketplace should be excited to extend their most competitive rates to your customers. That's your job. You're a market maker. I think Wunderite is a tool that facilitates that in an easy and fast process. So what do you need to do? Like, most agencies, what do you do? It's like, yeah, I need a driver list, vehicle list, payroll, revenues. I need to know, do you work on roofs? I have a bunch of these random questions. I need to gather all that stuff up. And maybe I mentioned, already loss runs, put all that together and like make it look compelling and digestible to underwriters so you can like sell these deals. And so Wunderite makes that whole process like just a lot easier. I think both for staff who've been around for a while, we actually make it really easy where they can literally work right on the PDFs that they're used to. Also for like next generation people who have literally been using an iPhone their entire life at this point, since iPhone started like 2007.
Yeah.
And then they graduate, they're working in a new industry. It's like, it's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really easy to collaboratively do that. I think it is a tool that will make you stand out in a sea of paperwork, in a sea of confusion. And I think it's a differentiator from a sales perspective. I also think from a renewal perspective, back to the point, like, hey, first and foremost, you're a sales organization. And second of all, it's like renewals and retention is the name of the game. And if you just think like, if you're working on a $5,000 revenue account, if you could save one account like that by having a better renewal process, like what would that do for the organization? Just one account. And I think what we're finding in here is like, yeah, like one account could like, it could pay for the whole, it could pay for the whole subscription for the year.
Yes.
Having a tool like this. So I think there's differentiation around telling a different story. In fact, we have an agency, predominantly commercial focused, small agency, but it's just a producer and like another person, but he just does like 90% commercial and he crushes it.
Yeah.
And he follows some of the potentially counterintuitive advice or that's out there, and he fired one of his biggest clients. Not an easy thing to do, especially as a small agent, but you're like, hey, this client was a lot of work, frustration. The client was like, hey, I don't have access to Wunderite anymore. Like, how do I get that back? And he's like, yeah, you don't. Like, that's part of working together with me. Yeah. And I think just, to the point of like, people today have new expectations. How many insurance agents do you know? How many people do you know that either ordered a coffee on Starbucks or like sent their kids money on Venmo or some app like that, or ordered a ride to the airport on Uber or to the trade show, yet don't have that same technology offering an experience for their own customers? And if you're one of those people that's using all these apps in your daily life and then think that your customers wouldn't necessarily want to engage it, I would challenge you. Like, you might want to actually test that and say, let me go talk to some of my next generation, clients, my tech savvy, tech forward ones, and put a tool like a Wunderite out in front of them and kind of get their reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I was taking a couple notes there when you were talking, and I've got a couple of different things that came out of that. Number one, it's so funny that you used the example of a $5,000 policy, because literally this morning, our COO, John, when we were talking about the proposal that you guys sent us, he was like, yeah, I mean, essentially, if we save one $5,000 account that we otherwise would have lost from this, like we just paid for the subscription and then go forward, beyond that. And like, we're making money and this makes sense. It's like, yeah, it's a great way to look at it. So,
like, absolutely. And look, and like, we've all been there in this, you have a competitive renewal.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing differently? You need something new to talk about. Like when I was part of, Sitkins and Insight, they were like, every time you're talking to your clients, you need a new file to open. You need a new thing to talk about.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of relationships. Otherwise, if you're not
Sure.
talking about the new stuff, if you're not having interesting things, it's kind of like the same old, you know? And I think that's both from an efficiency and experience perspective, but also like, hey, it's something new to, you know, put in front of your clients.
Yeah, case in point, off mic beforehand, you and I were talking about our shared love for photography, and like
Exactly.
you and I could sit here and talk about Boston College all day long, but there was something new that we discovered. And it was kind of fun and exciting, right? So,
Yeah. That's how
um,
relationships work. You got to have
yeah,
something new and exciting and something fresh. Yeah. So
absolutely. So, in real time, what I envisioned when we were going through the demo with you the other day, it was fascinating. Because I haven't written a lick of business myself in like 8 years because I've been managing the agency, but I remember, and I also see what our staff, both from like we have a agency bill renewal department, and we've got a marketing department. Well, obviously we got producers, and all of those I think are groups of people who are going to benefit tremendously from Wunderite. And when I was thinking about, like, when I was watching you guys do the demo, I was literally sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I remember this. Like, you get an underwriter who says, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. Let me send you the supplemental application. And all you're thinking in that moment is, please don't make it be long. Please don't make it be long. And then you get it and it's like 18 pages. You're like, oh, crap. And you're just like, and it's like, it's literally in my mind, it sets up a roadblock in the agent's mind of like, how much work am I about to have to do to both, answer the questions that I know I can answer on my own. And then, and here's where I think you guys have figured it out. Then collaborate with the prospective client or the existing client who you're remarketing, to get the additional information. And I think most people out there listening to this right now are already like, you're cringing and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. It's
I'm
like pulling.
cringing thinking about
Yeah. It's
this.
like pulling
I'm remembering
teeth.
the worst renewal experiences where you're like, I got to go sit in front of the client, get an
Yes.
appointment, walk through the factory, which is cool, and then sit down in some back office and be like, all right, let's go through your revenues and then
Yeah.
explain what this question even means. And you're like, dude, I just want to get out of here. Like, this is
Yeah.
not a fun part of my job.
Yeah. And you want I think it was, Chris Paradiso or, God, I can't remember who at BrainShare was talking about, they were actually talking about outsourcing things. And they were saying that, you want to only outsource the things that do not add value in the client experience. And I think what you just described, sure, there's value in having some face time with the client, but really at the end of the day, if you're sitting there spending an inordinate amount of time trying to pull information out of them, or think about it, if you don't even go into the factory in this example, you're trying to do that via email or phone calls or whatever, it's still time consuming. And what I saw with Wunderite was like, oh my gosh, like, if there's a handful of questions I don't know the answer to, you're telling me that all I have to do is like select those questions, and then Wunderite automatically creates a link that I can then send to the client or the prospective client, and then they open that link and all they do is just answer those questions. That's brilliant. And then it populates the answers in real time on my end. Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, 100%. And I think as far as like the touch points with the client, it's all about having positive touch points, right? Like in
Yeah.
any relationship, like you can only go to the well so many times.
Yeah.
People will be like, I got to fill out. And in fact, I just was doing a life insurance application last night. It was like, oh, this is so painful. They've gotten way better where like they make it easy. It's like, hey, listen, it's going to be 30 minutes to an hour on the phone and they're going to ask all the questions. It's going to be frustrating and annoying, but then you can be done. And so I
Yeah.
think like clients are willing to put up with a certain amount, right? But let's go back to your example. You get that 18-page supplemental. Your client's like,
Yeah.
all right, I know we got to remarket it. And then you're back in the office and you're like, actually, hey, Jim, I forgot to ask. The underwriter followed up with 5 more questions. By the way, we ended up placing it with a different carrier. We're going to have to like fill out a whole new application just because like, just for their records, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and the client, like they're almost like unforgiving, right? And
Yeah.
so like, look, I don't love my calendar. It's like, hey, I live by it. I don't love my calendar tool. A tool like Calendly, it takes something that used to be such a frustrating process in a negative pain touch point to something that's like,
Yeah.
this is 10 times easier where I
Yeah.
can literally choose the time that works for me. And then if I have to reschedule, I can literally just click on it and hit reschedule. And like
Yeah.
people don't really care because they're like, great. I didn't have to talk to you. I didn't have to like
Yeah.
spend any brain power. And I think the same thing is true with applications. We all know that you need applications. You have to underwrite business if you want to be competitive. That's just what
Yeah.
insurance is. But nobody wants to sit down, fill out a 20-page application, go back with 20 more questions, and then go back again and fill out a second or third supplemental just so that the underwriter can check the box. That's
Yeah.
negative touch points. That's not adding value to the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I was thinking there's also some other tools that you guys have built in that just blew our minds. Maybe you could share a little bit about those, like some of the other data sources that you're pulling from, or some of these tools. You know what I'm talking about, right? With like the vehicle list and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So I think, look, let's talk big picture, right? Because it's like, all right, this is kind of cool. You have an application that can streamline the data gathering process, filling out PDFs and supplementals. Like, that's cool. What's the big picture opportunity? I think what is missing in the industry is the tools we have, they weren't really designed like for salespeople. They weren't really designed necessarily from a sales perspective. You have the sales forces of the world, like the CRMs.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Then you have like those that were built with insurance vertical in mind, and like they're a little bit better, but they're still like they don't encapsulate all the data you got to gather. And then the agency management systems, like they kind of have the information, but then Ivan's like downloads and overwrites your information. Or then, your customer didn't buy insurance for one of their vehicles that would just stayed in the yard, or they didn't buy insurance for something. And now because they didn't buy insurance, you no longer really have a record that thing ever even existed.
Mm-hmm.
How many times you're like, oh, like I forgot that you had XYZ going on because my records are in the form of what did you buy for insurance coverage? Or if you're talking to a prospect, you're like, let me get a copy of your policies just to get a sense of where things are today. But then you actually dig in, you're like, oh, wait, your revenue is twice what you're listed for in your insurance policies, or like things are way off. And so the whole thesis with Wunderite is we need to gather that data, regardless of like whatever you end up buying for insurance. We need to know that data. And we need to make the data gathering faster, easier, better. One of those things that's frustrating is like vehicle schedules. How many times have you gotten an incorrect VIN from one of your clients? Well, you might not know actually, because 5% of vehicle identification numbers today that are insured are actually incorrect in the industry.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's actually a large percentage.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you have zeros or O's, I's or L's or ones. Like these things are confusing, and it's 17 digits, and human mind is actually fundamentally not designed to be good at, remembering 17 digits randomly placed all over the place. So anybody out there, like you're familiar with Zillow, you're familiar with LoopNet, you're familiar with all these great tools. Take Google. Google knows what you're searching before you even finish typing like the first word.
Yeah.
Why don't we have that in the insurance industry? Why don't we have it where I just type in like business name and all of a sudden, boom, like all the information just pops in. All the basic stuff that we're like, hey, we can all agree on this. It's not rocket science. And so that was something I saw, years ago where I'm like, we need tools as producers to maximize the touch point with the client so we can have all that data pre-filled. So take something like a vehicle schedule. You can upload a list of literally 50 VINs for a fleet of vehicles. Wunderite will enrich that data and put in year, make, model, an image of what the thing is. Is it a motorcycle? Is it a golf cart? Is it a truck? Is it like, what is this? And make sure that you have a valid VIN so you're not sending crappy data to your underwriters. Same thing with properties. It's like, what flood zone is it in? I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I'm out here in Cape Cod. How many times did I have to look up flood zone and then double check it against the FEMA flood maps and be like, did it change? Like, what's going on here? I don't want to tell someone the wrong thing. So that stuff can all be automated. Like you can automate more and more of the data, the gathering, the enriching. So you can spend more time evaluating what's the true risk this client has. What should I be advising based on my expertise, my professionalism, my knowledge of the space? What can I do with that information to advise? The gathering of data part, like a lot of that's just admin work, and that's not adding value. If I looked at my time as a producer, the gathering part was probably 70 to 80% of the work, right? Going to the town assessor's website, going to the Secretary of State database, going to Zillow, going to all the different sites, and then putting that in one format. By the way, what is the one format? It's like, there wasn't really one. So we ended up having to create formats to store all the customer data and our statement of values. But the real value you create is when you look at all that And now you can talk about your clients. Say, listen, your building was built in the 1700s or 1800s. Something happens. Let's say like someone smashes their car into the side of the building. And now because of the local ordinances, you're going to have to do X, Y, Z. What do you think your insurance policy says about that? And they're like, gosh,
Yeah.
I have no idea. And you're like, yeah, you're going to be in a really bad spot because you don't have ordinance or law coverage. And they're like, well, what is that? Like, well, we're going to fix that. And you can do all the advising because now you have all the data. And so I guess the idea with Wunderite, we talk about automating your applications, is like, you should be automating the parts of your work that's not really interesting for anybody so that you can do more of like what you're best at.
Yeah. I love it, man. It's funny. You kept talking about gathering. I was sitting there thinking about the phrase hunter gatherer, and like as salespeople, we need to be hunters more than gatherers, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So it was interesting too. In looking at the demo again the other day and watching, just like literally being in awe about what all this does. We were going into the demo probably, and maybe you've experienced this with other agencies. We went into the demo thinking like, this will be a producer tool. This will be a marketing department tool. And then at the end of the demo, John was like, dude, this is going to revolutionize our agency bill renewal process. Like those people are going to be using this almost as much, if not even more than the producers, because this is what they are doing every day, is having to deal with the onslaught of, supplemental applications that are being requested. And oh, by the way, I don't know that we mentioned this, but what do you guys just have, like a handful of supplemental apps that are digitized?
Yeah, I mean, we have over 1,000 applications and growing.
It's insane.
We're partnered with Accord. We have Accord forms on there, and every new agency we bring on, we're adding more forms. And so I think, but by the way, this isn't a trivial thing when you think about it. And part of this goes to the architecture. When you answer the question on one of the supplementals, let's just say, is your roof older than 20 years?
Right.
Today, you answer that, you scratch in, yes or no, you scan it, and it goes into the abyss of your agency management system, never see the light of day again.
Yeah.
But that data point is really interesting because it means a couple things. One is if you're struggling to think through your next meeting, when you're doing like your stewardship appointment, if you're doing a good job as a producer 6 months in, what do you talk about? You're like, the sports game. And I don't know, you're trying to have versus, hey, look, Jim, just want to kind of circle back on the plan that we agreed on together when you hired us, a year and a half ago. We're halfway through the first 3-year phase of that plan. And we had identified 200 items to address over the 3-year period. Literally, the answers they've given you on insurance applications are the ammunition that you need to continue to implement your plan to improve them from a risk management perspective. Ooh. Jim, your roof is older than 20 years. And just looking forward, as you think about capital outlay, we should be thinking about updating the roofs on these buildings, because if you don't, from an insurance charge perspective, this is going to start to impact the marketability of your business. Yeah. As you think about, whether it's cyber and like website review and just like different questions that are literally on the applications that we scan and never think about again because it's so annoying to do that. We actually capture those as individual data points to the point where you go on Wunderite, you could just type in the word roof and it will show you any time on any application the word roof was ever mentioned. And I think that the beauty there is if you have all that data, it can help you do a more compelling, better job to advise your clients. Now, look, between us, Jim, and your listeners, like we're not in the spot now where like that part of the business is automated, but the foundation has been laid where we want to be the tool that you go to capture that information and think about not just like how do you tell a better story, easier story, faster for your clients, but truly how do you empower the real experts at risk management, et cetera, to do a better job for their clients. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Dude, you are still a producer at heart. I love it. Some of the things you were saying right there, I was like, this guy is like the next Heath Sheeran or Brent Kelly or whoever. Like you get some good nuggets in there from a training perspective for
dude. I appreciate it, man. And we should do a follow up on like, I don't know, some of the things I learned in my sales journey. But listen, if you're in the insurance business and you're trying to find your path, it's hard. Yeah. Anybody, any of your listeners that's out there, if you've closed deals, if you built a book of business, if you've closed 60, $100,000 in revenue with some of the accounts, like that's a hard thing to do. It's
Yeah.
hard to get the information from clients. It's hard to get them to be on board. It's hard to get it through your own internal team and like then
Yeah.
the insurance carriers, and they have to be like in a competitive spot. And then ultimately, like maybe your client comes back at the end like, I just shopped it to my existing buddy from high school and he ended up twisting the arm of the underwriter and they dropped their pricing. And you're just like, man, this is so frustrating. So I've been in the trenches, like to your point earlier, and man, you have to be on the ball if you want to win.
Yeah.
And I think that stuck with me, hasn't gone away.
Well, I have to tell you, man, I think that is one of the biggest differentiators between you and anybody else that's working in this space. Is you know it, you have experienced it, you know the pain, and you can still speak, as we're listening to right now, very intelligently and compellingly about the need for Wunderite and the tools that it offers, and really the benefit that it provides in the end. I admire you for that, and I think if you haven't taken that to heart, my friend, take that to heart, because there will be a lot of insurance agents out there who are drawn to what you guys are doing just because of the fact that I mean, I listed off all your designations before, right? Like you actually know what you're doing from an insurance perspective, and you've built an amazing technology tool suite solution that can help agents. So, man, kudos to you.
No, hey, I appreciate it, man. You're getting me fired up. I'm like, I want to go sell insurance again. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get out there and, to call on these accounts. And by the way, we're such a great environment where, maybe hardening market.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some M&A activity. It's like, man, I'd be excited with the tools today. Go build my target list of all the companies that I got acquired or whatever the strategy is.
Yeah.
And man, just go out there and if you do an awesome job, you're listening to the people out there, Jim, like you and the others who are really thinking about how to build a great business. And man, there's so much opportunity to just do a fantastic job for your clients and build a fantastic lifestyle while you're doing that.
No doubt, my friend. Before we get into the rapid fire round, I'm looking at your shirt and it reminds me, what does Wunderite mean? Where did that name come from?
Yeah. So our original name was sovreport.com. That was like the original.
Quite as sexy.
No. And it's funny, I bought that, I think in 2013, years ago. And so was thinking like, what is this thing? And I'm like, a couple things. First and foremost, if you've been in the business like you for a few years, you've probably had to pay out some, there's probably been some pretty serious injuries where you've had to like write checks. Yeah. There's probably been some sticky situations where maybe your own agency is in a sticky situation but oftentimes like your customer's in a tough spot. We've had injuries, we've had death claims, both on the workers' comp and life side. And there's just unfortunate situations, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. Is that sometimes you have risk, and it's just part of anything. And so, believe that insurance is truly a wonderful product. And I think that it's all too often, man. I remember again being in the trenches. You talk to people, and they just want to crap on the business, like insurance. Like insurance agents are all the same. Yeah. You guys just play golf and drink,
well, they do, but.
And it's a necessary evil. And it's like, hey, look, the insurance industry brought us the first fire departments. Yeah, they brought us. They are the reason that airbags took off as quickly as they have. They are the reason that we have one of the reasons that we have stringent building codes that saves lives. Yeah. It's the reason why when you build a new property in like hazardous areas, it's like, if it's in a flood zone, over time, like that building quality is going to get better. And you know what? That is a societal good. And so I believe the industry is beautiful and wonderful. My first daughter was born 6 weeks premature. And, we had $50,000 plus in medical bills. We were in the NICU for a week, which was a pretty short amount of time. And it was super scary and stressful. And it's like, look, when insurance does what it's designed for, it's a wonderful product. Absolutely believe that. One of that is part of the name. So Wunder comes from the German Wunder, which is miraculous. Yeah. Want to bring the miraculous back. And then underwriting, of course, comes from Lloyd's of London, where people would meet up in this, I think it was a tea house or coffee shop. They would literally write their name underneath a ship's manifest. This is the ship. This is the crew. This is the goods. This is where it's going. do you want to underwrite the voyage as a financial backer? Almost like the venture capital of their day. And so wanted to bring some of the miraculous back to underwriting, which this industry that we all, love to work in.
It's God's greatest industry in the world, by the way, if you weren't aware of that.
Let's go. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, 100%.
I love it, man. Thank you for sharing that. And I love, one thing I know about you, you love history, and that's
True.
it is a kind of a beautiful thing in a way when you think about the history and what this industry has provided to mankind. I mean, not getting too deep here, but it's true. Like, there are a lot of things that we don't have to worry about anymore, or that have been advanced because of. I mean, can you imagine, like, if your house were on fire and you hope your neighbors come over and with buckets? Like, that's.
I mean, take it one step further though, and like look at normally I don't go back prehistory, but like when you look at the structures that facilitate society, insurance is the lubrication that like facilitates the economy. People would not take risk unless they have ways of de-risking. They would not build massive companies unless they could be a limited stockholder. But also they wouldn't be a limited stockholder if they weren't going to have a backstop to protect them, which is insurance. You can't open a business without insurance because like you need to protect society that you can make them whole. But even going further back, I mean, 10,000 years ago, I tell the story about, I just read the story to my daughters of, Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, when Joseph had his dreams in Egypt about 7 cows coming out of the river and the famine coming to the land, what was he doing? He was negotiating to the Pharaoh of Egypt to put an insurance program in place to make sure that the country wouldn't starve to death.
I love it.
It's true. I mean, like people used to split up their goods when they were shipping boats across the, oceans tens of thousands of years ago. It is a human, we had this in our ultimate vision statement. It is a human desire to protect one another. And fundamentally, like that is what insurance is about. The structure that we do that through has changed over time from, hey, I can bring the bucket and put out the fire at my neighbor's house or feed them when they're not doing well. But as society grows, and in order for this to be efficient, just like the stock market's efficient, you have to have just a much vaster structure. And so I think the necessary evil part misses the reminder that like, hey, this is actually the lubrication that allows society to function the way that it has. And so it's a great business. It's a great business for a lot of reasons. And I think that at its heart, we want to be focused on the positive of it's a human desire to protect your neighbor, to protect one another, and bring some of that miraculous back, and be the mouthpiece of like, hey, we're planting our foot here. We love this business. It's more than some advertisements on TV. It's actually about making people's lives better.
Preach it, brother. I love it. I wrote that down. It is a human desire to protect one another. I love that.
That is literally from our vision, by the way. So
I love that. Hey, kudos to you for uncovering that. I think more companies need to get in touch with who they are at their core. I could go on for that on that topic for days. One of the things I love that you said too is talking about like without insurance, people would not have taken risks in order to move society forward. And it again brings us back to Boston College motto of ever to excel. Ever to excel would not be possible without insurance. Thank you, Peter.
Look, the Titanic, right? Biggest claim of the century.
Yeah.
And this might blow some minds. Like, do you know how long it took it to pay that claim out?
No.
It was paid in less than 30 days. So you think about, the biggest vessel, the biggest loss.
Underwriters.
Well, the insurance was in place. And by the way, it was efficient. Like the insurance has been a great business. And I think sometimes, sometimes in our business, we think that technology is just going to fix all our problems. And I'm the first one to say it's actually not about the technology. Sometimes technology makes things more complicated. Yeah. It's about the implementation and execution. But you think about the risk of building the biggest ship of its time, and it's like those people had insurance, and it was underwritten, and it was paid in full in less than 30 days.
Wow,
that is the risk enablement that the industry has provided for centuries.
I did not know that. Did you know the connection between the Titanic and Fenway Park? Since you're
gonna have to enlighten me. This feels new, so you're gonna have to enlighten me.
The grand opening of Fenway Park was overshadowed by the sinking of the Titanic, and practically no one showed up for the first day.
Wow. I know
How do you
Fenway
like
is
that?
from 1912, right? Which is
Yeah,
the year the Titanic. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
See now
I think it was April of 1912. Yeah.
I cannot believe that I didn't know that. And so like if you learn something new every day, this is amazing.
Now you have some more Red Sox trivia.
Let's go.
All right, man. Let's get into the rapid fire section here because I want to pick your brain on some stuff. Uh, Now you can't say Wunderite, but one piece of technology or software you can't live without.
Man, there's so many things I want to talk about. I just bought a minivan. I want to talk about how awesome minivans are for my growing family, which everyone loves to make fun of me for. But I'm gonna say something. I was thinking about this. It's like what's something that's actually actionable and true. I subscribe to YouTube Premium. I'm not exactly proud of it because like sometimes I'm like Google's too big. But if you ask yourself like what is your cost per hour and then how much education are you getting on a platform like YouTube? Me
Ooh,
personally, man, I watch it anytime I need to look something up. It's like I'm going on YouTube, I'm researching like crazy, and I'm
yeah,
watching videos at 2x speed. I can't
yeah.
watch it at one, I gotta watch it two. The amount of ads, man, it is crazy. When you have YouTube Premium, if you are a watcher, like game changer,
Yeah.
absolute game changer. You can educate yourself to literally do anything with YouTube. And so YouTube Premium is where it's at.
I love that. Actually, I experienced that last night. So after 30 years, I am taking guitar lessons again. So I took guitar
Love it.
lessons when I was in my teens,
We
and
gotta talk guitar. Dude, we gotta talk guitar at some point. I didn't even know
oh
this.
man, awesome. Yeah. And my guitar teacher was like, look, I want you to, cause I
What
know the
kind of guitar do you
basics. Like I
play?
can, play chords and stuff and some basic like lead guitar, but not enough. And I said, I want to learn more lead and more complicated. So
Stairway to
he,
Heaven.
started me out with, just like playing scales and stuff. And he's like, I want you to, just look up a drone on like, G or A or whatever, just like a cello, just drone the same note for like 10 minutes and then play over that. And every time I did, and I'd like go to a different key, so, okay, now I want to do like E, like an ad would pop up. I'm like, oh my God, this is killing me. Like all I want
Dude,
to do is just
it's
keep
like
playing.
$12 a month or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
if you do the math, like okay,
Is
let's
it
say
really?
I
It's only
play.
$12?
I don't know. Maybe it's more for a family plan. $20. I don't know.
Yeah, but still.
But you do the math and you're like, okay, so I play guitar. Let's say I'm
Yeah.
practicing an hour a week. I'm watching 30 minutes of, whatever thing, and I get 5 minutes of ads. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, dude, it actually would pay for itself.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. I
game
love it.
changer.
Yeah. Total game changer. Okay. That is a new one I have not heard before, and I love it.
I promise you this, Jim, if you learn nothing else, I'm not paid by YouTube, I promise you, if you watch a decent amount from time to time to educate yourself on any topic,
Yeah.
you will not regret having it, and taking it away would be like a painful experience.
Like the guy who said, "Where's my Wunderite?"
Yeah,
You're gonna have to have
exactly.
it. You're gonna have to create some swag, by the way, that says, "Where's my Wunderite?"
I love it. I love it. I love it. Where's my
It'll
Wonder
be
Ray? Okay.
inside advertising joke. All right, one book that you're reading now, or that you've read recently, or any book that you want to share with folks.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna cheat and do two. So first of all,
Yeah,
if you're truly serious about taking your game to the next level, I absolutely recommend checking out the CPCU books. They're not the easiest books to read.
yeah,
But again, this is if you are a practitioner of insurance and you want to become an expert, starting with like, I don't know, I think it's CPCU 500 or like whatever the intro book is.
yeah.
Um, when you are playing any game, if you want to win the game, you have to know the rules. The
Ooh, yeah,
CPCU series of books is the rules of how the industry works and how the business works. And so if you're trying to like find your way without that knowledge, it's like playing a game of Risk or Settlers of Catan without
yeah,
knowing how to win, and that's kind
yeah,
of foolish.
yeah,
So
yeah.
check out CPCU. You can pursue that. I actually wrote an article about how I earned my CPCU in a year. It's on LinkedIn. You can find it. Um, I'd say if you're looking for some inspiration, and you're young into the business, that is a lifelong designation that I don't think you will regret having. And there's a path to doing it reasonably and affordably, and it will absolutely move your insurance game forward. I think
Love it.
for those of you who are like, yeah, maybe that's cute, but I just, I want to just crush it at sales. And, maybe the CPC is not part of your journey. And by the way, like there's some of the best salespeople in the country. They're never going to get a CPCU. So I'm not suggesting that you
Yeah,
need that. You got to
sure.
find your own path. For me, One of the most fantastic books that I implemented, which I think the implementation is the most important part. It's called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff, Orenklaff. He talks about how, and I think in his context, he's probably talking about like pitching, deals, how to like buy and sell companies. But the principles are so helpful when you're sitting there in your first sales pitch. How do you
Yeah.
set the table? How do you
Yeah.
set the frame, the power frame? Who's the decision maker at the table?
Mm.
Who's like the mini star? There's just so many things that he talks about, like the, I don't know, like the monkey brain, I think, or the reptile brain, like which part of the brain are you appealing to? And it's these small things in deals, like who's the most important person at the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really good. It's really good stuff. And even if you don't buy in 100%, that will definitely elevate your sales game. So Pitch Anything, Oren Klaff.
I love it, man. Do you ever read anything or listen to books on Audible, or are you just a pure book guy,
Oh,
like paper guy?
absolutely, 100%.
You listen to
I
those at
will
speed and a half or two times?
everything. Once you start listening, I mean, man, we record customer calls when we're doing Wunderite stuff. I watch those at
Yeah.
2x speed.
Yeah.
YouTube, it's like 1.5 to 2. Podcasts, 100%. I do it in fast forward because, I don't know. It's just it's like learning a new language, and once you can learn to understand at 1.5 to 2x speed, you're like, why would I ever go back?
Yeah.
I get the same amount of content in half the time. I think one of my most favorite Audible books is Nathaniel Philbrick, when he talks about, I think, the Mayflower,
Mm.
and just kind of some of like the really, really original American history. It's just some fascinating stuff. That's like a guilty pleasure if I'm going to like,
Yeah.
not be doing like kind of businessy type stuff.
Yeah. Which you need in your life in order to have some semblance of balance or, humanity. I
Yeah.
love it. Awesome. And then advice you would give to your younger self. You talked about this briefly before.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, if you can't already tell, and I'll put a thing out here. I earned a Six Sigma green belt in business school. It was just kind of like a class they had, and
Heck yeah.
um, which is all about total quality control and error reduction, and how do you build
Yeah.
amazing process.
Yeah.
That's like one of the things that Toyota's claim to fame was, like, how did it build such an amazing automobile? It's through total quality control, like Six Sigma principles, and those are things that we apply. And so just kind of thinking about, if you see Peter has a lot of designations, for me it was about advancing my game in the space. It's about
Yeah.
investing in yourself. And so
Yes.
advice I'd give to my younger self is, Peter, invest in yourself, which I did, but like maybe at a more rapid clip,
Yeah.
honestly. And which might even sound a little crazy, but I don't know. Invest in relationships. I think that the key to business and success, and also just like general probably meaning, purpose, satisfaction in life, is quality relationships. And number 3 is like, go for it.
Yeah.
Invest in yourself, invest in relationships, and go for it.
I love it. I love it. Side question. Are you a soup guy?
Soup guy.
Yeah. Do you like to consume soup?
Sure. I love soup. Kale soup, tomato soup with grilled cheese. I make the grilled cheese on the waffle iron. It's kind of cheating, but
Yeah, man. Do you like marshmallows? You're a healthy guy. I suspect you're probably not eating a
oh
lot of marshmallows.
no, listen, everything in moderation. Mean between extremes. These are some ancient lessons from ancient historians. Listen, I love a good s'more, and I haven't had a marshmallow soup, but
Oh no, it's not a marshmallow soup. But if you had the choice between on a, because I know because I spend time in Rhode Island every summer. Sometimes we're sitting in on the beach in July 4th in our sweatshirts, so it can be cool for a while. So I can still
yeah.
ask you at this stage in the game. We're recording this in May. If you had the choice between eating hot soup or gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate, I know those are two totally different things. Like, gun to your head, what would you choose?
Right now, I go for a hot soup. I think
Hot soup.
I love some sweets, but from time and again, but
Tomato?
plus lunchtime. Plus, we're getting close to lunchtime, dude. Tomato. We will get tomatoes from the farm and like
Mm,
do tomato soup with, like, we'll even do homemade sourdough
yeah.
and do homemade sourdough grilled cheese on the waffle iron.
Oh, yeah.
And dude, it's pretty good.
That's awesome. Well, you're gonna love the soup I'm gonna send you from Spoonful of Comfort.
Okay.
We've given it to all of our staff during the pandemic when we couldn't get together for our annual employee appreciation event.
I
It
love
was
it.
a bigger hit than any of the swag we ever gave out. People were constantly like emailing saying, this is the best thing ever. So
It's
I'll
got
get
to
your
be with a name
address.
like that, Spoonful of Comfort. I can only imagine.
Well, it's got a great story too. I mean, essentially
Tell me about it.
the woman who founded it, her mother had always made soup when she was growing up. And then, fast forward, her mother was nearing the end of her life. And the daughter was, trying to like perfect this one recipe, and she wanted to send it to her mother. Her mother passed away before she had a chance to get it to her. And she said, my mission is to share the soup that I wanted to share with my mother with the world.
That's
And
awesome.
so, and it's actually a good thing to give away. Anytime we've had friends or family who've lost a loved one, we send that instead of flowers. And it's, we're humans. People think
Yeah.
with their stomachs, right? So
I love it. And soup is, yeah, absolutely. I love it. That's awesome.
yeah. Well,
Looking
I
forward
just
to it.
want to thank you for being on the show. So that's my way of thanking you.
Yeah.
But Peter, before we sign off, what's where can well, first of all, one final piece of advice that you would give to the audience, especially based on anything we talked about today.
Yeah. I think the piece of advice that I give people that I know most closely when they present any decision to me, and people ask me for advice from time to time, there's big opportunities in their life, there's big decision points. The most important thing that I think is you need to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, like any path's going to get you there. Um, Secondly, is like in addition to knowing what you want, right? If we're going to be a little nerding out on English here, like to thine own self be true. This is from Hamlet,
Yeah.
from Polonius. It's like you have to be true to yourself. And so if you know what
Yeah.
you want and you're true to yourself, I think you'll put you in a good spot.
Absolutely, man. Love it. Peter, if people want more of you in their life or to understand more about Wunderright, what's the best place for them to connect with you, or multiple places?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. I've gotten a little bit deeper into Twitter as well. And you can check out Wunderite, WUNDERITE.com. You can check us out there. You can call 888 Wunderite. That was important to me for those of you who are on the road. I know it's like a lot of people that still
Oh,
are driving hours. Wanted to get the 888 Wunderite phone number.
that's cool.
And we go to a good amount of trade shows as well. So if you have a trade show that you're going to be at, shoot me a note, peter@wanderright.com. Like, hey, this is a trade show I'm going to be at. You guys are going to be here. Would love to meet up. And maybe we will. Maybe we won't. If we hadn't heard of it, maybe we'll check it out and come join.
That's awesome, man. Love it. Stick around for me for a second, but for everybody else, it was fantastic having you on the show, man. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, likewise. This was a blast. Thank you, Jim.
Awesome. Hey, folks, until next time, grow big or go home.